Hello and welcome to the next of these webinars from NBS. I'm delighted to be able to say that today we have Peter Caplehorn, who is Chief Executive of the Construction Products Association. Peter was originally going to be speaking as part of our Constructions Leaders Summit a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, the technology got the better of us, so I'm delighted to be able to say that Peter is able to join us today and to be able to share his views around product safety and on competencies. Just a quick reminder for those who didn't see the summit a few weeks ago, all of those presentations are available on the mbs.com. So please do go and have a look at those. If you've got any other questions around those, we'd love to answer those questions as well. If you've got any suggestions for other webinars, please do tell us too. But right now, I'm going to hand over to Peter, who's going to talk to us about competencies and product safety. Peter, over to you.
Richard, thank you very much, thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I hope I can juggle the technology this time and share some thoughts, if you like, on product safety and hopefully help people as to where we are going. So I'm now going to screen share.
Wonderful, we can see that.
That's great. So, good day, everybody. I'm going to talk about the emerging requirements for product safety and competence, and just go through really where this important part of the building safety reforms actually is at the moment. And the first thing I want to just cover, of course, is I'm coming from the Construction Products Association. I just wanted to quickly tell you about the products arena, if you're not aware. That part of the construction industry is worth 60 billion. It covers around 24,000 companies and approximately about 300,000 jobs in the UK. The CPA sees itself as very much in the middle of this discussion, representing, as we do, 85% of the construction products industry, talking across that part of the industry, across company and trade members, but also liaising with government and trying to make sure that the information that everybody has in this important part of the sector is clear, and making sure that government understands the needs and the voices from construction. So, product safety and competence has been a key issue ever since we had that horrible disaster at Grenfell. So it is important for us to understand exactly the role that products play. In complex buildings, products need to perform as intended. And that challenge about how we make sure that those very important characteristics support and drive the performance of the building is crucial. And this is not just about fire, it's not just about structure. There are lots of other factors in the building performance that are important. So chemical emissions, the ability to withstand aggressive situations, and that also through time is important. It's not just about when you complete a building, it's about the whole cycle. And these days, of course, we're talking about recycling, reuse, we're talking about minimizing the environmental impact. But above all, we need to make sure that we understand product performance. But of course, there is always the market pressure to use the cheapest that's available. Now, product competence equally is an emerging and important issue. For years, as a specifying architect, I felt it's really important that people understand exactly what choices they're making when they choose a product, when they specify something, when they procure it. And that is also carried through, of course, into installation and maintenance. Now, these days, there are a huge choice, and many of those choices are deeply technical, deeply complicated. And so we need actually those involved in the decision-making process to be competent in how they take that forward. We need to ensure that everybody across the team, everybody across the whole built environment sector understands the importance of a small choice change in any particular product, a small movement of a specification can have horrendous consequences. And I think, unfortunately, we've seen that very loud and clear in recent times. But of course, there's also about maintenance, about repair. We've seen lots of circumstances where bad maintenance has caused significant problems. Now, I'd like to put this into context, and the issue for me is about how the industry has got to this position. In the last 50 years, I'm afraid to say, and that embraces a lot of my career, we've seen increasing lack of regulatory understanding. Whilst regulations have seemed to get more complicated, unfortunately, the understanding of those regulations has reduced. We've seen a fall off of quality checking, and that is crucial. So pushing the responsibility of making sure things are correct down the supply chain. We've seen many more numerous technical solutions, analysis, computer analysis, principles that weren't thought about years ago. And some of those have taken us away from a one-to-one relationship with the product. And that's crucial. And in turn, we've also seen devolved responsibility and effective risk management of problems. And that has caused us significant problems as we go forward with trying to ensure that buildings are safe. A drive towards least cost and quickest time has always been the watchword. So to me, there's been a lot of factors. And if I just really bring that into stark relief, I'd like to just consider some of the history. I want to take you back to the summer of 1973 and to the Isle of Man. And a new building, which was meant to effectively be the answer for people going abroad, effectively bringing the summer weather indoors into the UK. So this was a leisure facility, and the cladding was a new product called Oroglass, and it unfortunately was not thoroughly tested, and you can see the disastrous result there. Unfortunately, because of poor escapes, bad planning, we had a significant loss of life and injury. But what did happen after this event was that the regulations were changed. And as a young architect at the time, it had a significant impact on me in terms of making sure you get the solutions right. If I now move forward quickly to recent history, to 2009, a building called Canal House, quite an unusual design because the flats are duplexes. So there is dual level escape. So in theory, that makes it much safer. Unfortunately, a history of poor maintenance, poor repair did result in a significant fire that quickly spread and resulted in a loss of life. Now, whilst this was nothing like the scale of the Summerland disaster, what it showed us was that there was a small change in the products being used, small incremental changes in how the safety of the building actually was meant to work, did result in a disastrous outcome. But unfortunately, in this 2009 environment, despite several coroner's letters, no changes to the regulations were made. But we were at that moment in a deregulatory arena. And a thing that I continually remind people about is that we had the red tape challenge. We had a situation of making sure that if you wanted to bring in one regulation, then two were removed. That whole trend of that time was even driving a move to remove building regulations completely. Now, of course, that all changed when Grenfell happened. And I think it's important, though, for people to remember that immediately before Grenfell, we had a very, very low base to come from. We had a very poor situation in terms of regulatory compliance, in terms of understanding, and in terms of competence across the whole industry. So the outcome, as we all know, has been the Dame Judith Hackett report, has been the building safety programme, and has been those key points that Judith Hackett has so well demonstrated. So we definitely need to see a culture change. And along with that, a new approach in terms of the whole process going forward. So that's about the creation of a national product regulator. We've seen the review of competence and the Setting the Bar report was issued a number of weeks ago, and we hope that that's the end of the beginning for the change of competence across the industry. But it also is about making sure that we have responsibility and sanctions. It's also about making sure that when we make decisions, particularly on products, that they are well understood, that competent decisions have been made, and above all, that those are recorded in a digital way of addressing the problem. So now, where does this take us? Well, I think it takes us to some specific points, and they are challenges without a doubt. But fundamentally, we need in future to ensure that all products are safe, and especially safe if they're safety critical. That may sound a bit of a tautology, but I think it's pretty clear. And that's about ensuring the relationships of those products in the design go together properly. Most of the conversation is focused on products, but it's actually at the end of the day about the relationships of products, how they're installed in the building. The quality of the installation, the quality of the design and specification is so important. We need to ensure robust testing and certification. We've already had lots of work undertaken on reviewing key testing and certification processes, but of course, there is a lot to do in that area. And particularly as we embrace the Brexit challenges, then there's going to be more to do in that particular arena. We need to verify and continuously check quality. One of the things that is of great concern is that whilst we see in certain parts of industry, quality checking has changed over all recognition, very little has changed in a lot of construction. I think I would say, though, that most manufacturers ensure that their quality checking is continuous, is reviewed on a regular basis. But when we actually look at that in the round, I think there's a huge amount of work to do on ensuring that we have the appropriate quality always. We need to provide clear and unambiguous information, and I'll come back to this in a second, but that is so important. We've seen situations where people have said, well, this product is approved too, but it doesn't say that it actually passed the test that gave it that approval. It just gets to a particular point. And we need to really get some clarity in that. We need to ensure that those specifying and installing are competent. Do people actually these days understand exactly all the details of the specification? And does every person installing something really understand what they need to do to install? We need to check and record the installation, and that's where digital comes in, of course. And we need to ensure that all of those processes are reproduced through the maintenance periods ahead during the building's life. So fundamental. So, okay, that's the agenda. Where have we got to? Well, the industry has not stood still on any of this, and we certainly have moved forward in a lot of ways. Dame Judith Hackett told us, don't wait for regulation, just get on with it. Make sure that you move things forward. And whilst some might say, well, the landscape isn't changing fast enough, certainly lots of people have spent a lot of hours on trying to take this forward. We do see a new approach to product competence, and we do see a new approach to product information. And as I said, there is a new focus on testing regimes, and there are new tests in the wings coming forward. But we also need to link all that to this new concept of duty holders and also the wider competency arena. Now, the CPA in particular have championed a couple of those things, as I think people would expect with regard to products. So we created very early on the Marketing Integrity Group. We had a concept that we needed to do something about product information. So we surveyed the industry, we produced a code of the quality of product information that we need, and we are now taking that forward. And in the spring of next year, we're hoping to launch that code. What that will mean is that for the first time, it will give all manufacturers a standard to sign up to about written or electronic or verbal communication about their products. such that they will confirm that it is to a certain quality. It is absolutely clear. It is repeatable. It is ensuring that what they're telling you as the user, whoever you are, that information is correct. So we need to make sure that everybody understands that, and we hope that everybody will embrace this new system and go with the new scheme. We feel that at the moment we need to put a mark on people's websites, on their literature, on any information that says they belong to that scheme. The details are still being developed, but I truly believe that this will help us over that particular hurdle. Then if we look at the understanding, the competence that people need with regard to products, this has been part of the general competence work as rolled out in the Setting the Bar report. But the products team have taken a slightly different view in that we have stood back from everybody and just reflected on what all the other competence work has led us to. But effectively, what we are trying to do is produce a understanding of competence that is needed at every stage of the project, right the way through from stage 0 to stage 7. And that will vary, of course, in terms of what a client needs, what a designer needs, what a specifier needs. But it also is about actually all the different actors. So where they are placed in the team as to exactly how much competence they need. Now, we're trying to produce that, what we call a competence matrix. And we're basically going to be launching this in the time running up to Christmas this year so that we can ensure that people understand exactly at every point in a product, in every point in a project, exactly what they need to do to ensure everything about that product is used appropriately in the project. So taking this forward, what we are trying to do is to make sure that all the duty holders, all the people in the whole chain, from client through the specifier, through the contractor, through maintenance, understand products fundamentally. We're also trying to ensure that the information is trustworthy, that everybody's using, and we're trying to make sure that above all, we use those advantages of digital and we join it all up. The CPA have had projects, lexicon and digital object indicators to actually bring about that cohesion using digital platforms. And again, that work is progressing and we hope will launch next year. But we need to also ensure that we focus everybody's attention on the importance of products. So this whole business of substituting products, of making sure that if you did substitute something, then it is an appropriate substitution. It is not something which is going to destroy the performance of the building. And I think that is crucial as well, a lesson that everybody has learned. You can't just say, I'm going to take that one out, put that one in because it's cheaper. You've got to really look at it. And I hope also that the new regulatory regime will mean that we have clear sanctions, clear lines of responsibility, which will make people think twice about whether they really want to do any changing at all, actually. And we have to ensure that we have clear lines of communication to make sure when that's occurred, everybody understands it and knows what they've actually done. So some final thoughts, if I may. This is essential for the future of the industry. We need to regain the trust that has been lost with the Grenfell disaster. And we need to build buildings that are fundamentally safe and make people feel safe. And we're only going to do that when we have some of those things that I've just been talking about. And that's about actually managing and controlling risk at its heart. It's making sure that we absolutely have a fundamental grip on some of these things. And we can all stand back, hand and heart, and say, yeah, I know exactly what's gone on there and I can prove it. That's the point. So that's about the right buildings used in the right way. And really, that's a no-brainer for the future. So I really hope that everybody is with us on this one. So thank you.
Peter, thank you very much. That was really, really useful.
All right.
I'd like, if I can, to just ask you a few questions about this one as well. And let's take competencies as a starting point, because competencies is something which is likely to be very new for a number of players in the industry. People watching this are likely to be both from the design and construction side, but also manufacturers. On the design side, we all, as professionals, we're both architects by training. We've had to do CPD for a long, long time, but there's changes coming to the architect side there, isn't there? So what's that likely to mean for architects as part of the changes in the building safety bill?
So for architects, Richard, the RIBA are marching towards making CPD much harder edged. So they're starting with health and safety, but that program is going to progress, and we will find a definite compliance requirement from the RIBA, certainly, and from the other design institutions, to make sure that people have done the appropriate CPD. And so it is no longer, I think, a point of saying, well, it's something that's optional. We've got to get, and certainly the professions are going to lead this, to a point where people say, you actually aren't allowed to practice unless you are provably competent. And that's what we're talking about with this. So I think I'm pleased that the RIBA are doing something, but there's a long way to go with this yet.
And this is the same also with RICS, ICE, etc. All of the professional disciplines. This is a huge change for them.
It very much is. And again, you can argue that some of this has gone on in pockets within those institutions. But I think everybody, and this goes wider than the professions, you've got to you've got to be able to answer the question, am I provably competent to do the job that I'm doing today? Not a qualification that I had 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I've often said the point that I've been an architect for 38 years and nobody has ever asked me whether I'm competent or not. So, that there's the litmus test. And that's, I think, what the public want. That's what the government want. We need a situation where people absolutely can just say, yeah, I'm competent, and I can tell you how I know I'm competent. Equally, though, we've got to have a situation where people have limits. Lots of people say to me, well, you can't know everything. Fair enough. So you've got to be able to say, right, actually, I know that much, but I don't know any of that stuff. And you need somebody else in that role.
Yeah, and that work around that grading system, I've seen some of that already, looks really, really good. Let's take competencies then into the actual construction phase. And for manufacturers, this is going to have quite a dramatic effect on those, and particularly those that have installers as part of their service delivery.
And again, I think that the start point with that is, this is not about business as usual. This is not about custom and practice. Again, I hear lots of people saying, well, I've always done it like that, and it's okay. And to some degree, people are fooling themselves that firstly, what they're doing is compliant. And I think we could probably talk all week about regulatory compliance, but it is about some of those factory systems that people have installed and have been using for some time, and spreading them outwards down the supply chain, and making sure that all of the people in the supply chain, so all the technical advisors, all the marketeers, all the procurers, they understand those key elements of the decision choices of any particular product versus any other particular product. What does it actually mean? And therefore, can we get to a point where those decisions are always the good ones, always competent?
Yeah, thank you for that. You talked also about the move to safety of products, and in particular around fire and structures as well. When will we know a little bit more of the detail of that? Because once again, we've had conversation that this should actually go much wider than that, but the initial focus is in those two areas. So when do we find out a little bit more?
Right, so that's rolling out over the next 6 months, and we're in detailed conversations on a regular basis with the team at MHCLG about that. So the bill that has just been published is about making sure the new framework is there, and then all of this other stuff will come along behind it. I think we're likely to see the light of day, and some of it has slightly been delayed by the pandemic, obviously, but I think some of it is likely to see the light of day late spring next year, and then rolling on through the next year. We've got a new regulator that's being set up, and many people will know about that being driven by the HSE, but we've also got a new product regulator and quite a few other fundamental committees and fundamental mechanisms that still need to be put in place. There's a lot of work to do to get this rolled out, but people should keep the communications channels open, actually, I think, in terms of making sure they understand what's coming down the tracks.
And that product regulation, let's just pick on that one as well, in that we know obviously in leaving Europe and the CE marking system, we have something new coming for the UK. Well, it's not coming, it's here, and about to be really quite a fundamental part of that whole testing regime.
Yes, it is, Richard, and it's a particular concern at the moment, insofar as there are quite a few unknowns within that process. So the government have been very clear about our transition from from construction products regulations, the UK mark, and the use of harmonised standards turning into designated standards. But the minute you drill into some of that, there are lots of unknowns. We've got considerable number of questions over how we transition some of this stuff. It also gets complicated if you have companies trying to sell stuff into both markets, and the issue around Northern Ireland, it does at the moment make your head spin in some ways, because of the various machinations that have had to be undertaken. So we've got a lot of work to do there. My one worry about this fundamentally is the undermining of product information, product standards and product testing, because of what we've got to do for Brexit, may well put under pressure the desire for safer buildings. And I think that's a really big challenge for all of us in the industry.
Where would anybody go to find out more about the new changes and this new mark?
So there is a lot of information already on the government website .gov, and that gives some of the principles. But I'm chairing a couple of groups under the Construction Leadership Council, and if people want to go to the CLC website, we are publishing a continuous stream of guidance as we become clear on key factors. We've already put some stuff up on the UK mark, and we've also put stuff on product movement across Europe as well. And there is other guidance planned, and we hope that will help everybody go forward. But clearly the problem is some of this stuff we're still trying to find out the detail ourselves.
And last section for me is around marketing and product marketing for construction product manufacturers. Just reminding everybody, we have a presentation from Adam Turk from the Marketing Information Group as well. And it's that balance, isn't it, between the requirement now for digital information so it can hook into the golden thread. That wonderful phrase about just because previously a manufacturer had said the product was tested to BS 1234, didn't actually say whether it passed or failed, of course. And these are the things we have to get over. So where would any of our manufacturer viewers, where would they go to find out a little bit more about that?
So Marketing Integrity Group information, Richard, is available on the CPA website, and that's available to everybody, not just members. And again, I'm very much hoping Adam is doing a great job with his team, and we hope that the whole scheme will be launched early in the new year.
Fantastic. I think the clarity that will come from that, once again, it comes back to Dame Judith Hackett's views on making sure things are simple for the industry, but the industry changes now and it doesn't wait for that regulation. I think that this wonderful phrase she had, and please, once again, go and have a look at the video of her talk on the Construction Leaders Summit, but talking about the moral obligation. Would you, as a designer, a contractor, a manufacturer, be happy putting a member of your family in a high-rise building if you know it's not safe? And there's that moral requirement. So let's not wait. Let's go and do it right now. Peter, thank you very much for that presentation. It was well worth waiting for. So thank you for your time. Any last words you want to say before we go?
Richard, I'm grateful for the opportunity, and thank you very much for persevering with me in terms of coming back and doing this. I hope everybody who's listening to it has found that useful. And of course, you know, we surely will get together in the future and do some more conversations when the whole journey has developed a bit further.
And I would say, of course, for everybody, keep watching the MBS will and the CPA site, of course, the CPA site, lots of information on there, both on the economic position as well. But do keep coming back, have a look, go and look through all of the other webinars that you'll find just where you found this one. But thank you very much, Peter. Thank you to you, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you.